All right, so today we're going to be working on this Polaris, this 440 that was in a couple videos ago. So the issue with this one is that it really is kind of a pig. Now, if I look at the service manual, these ones are really only meant to rev up to about 6,800 RPM, and so naturally it's going to be the most doggy of all my sleds. But yeah, I mean, this one clearly, the only thing we really have around here is ditches, and it's pretty early in the year yet, so this one's just kind of slow, and it doesn't have the extra 10 skid on them like the other ones have been converted to now. So, and this one also I think has the least lug on the track, so naturally this one's just going to be the worst. I'm going to try and make it a bit better, but our first order of business is really going to see what motor this is, because I think this is a 440. It says it on the hood. And it says and according to the VIN, it's a 1991 Sport, which should be a 440 because they switched from 340s to 440s in about 1990. So it should be a 440. However, the thing is, it's got 30 millimeter carbs, and as far as I can tell, it should have 34s. So, and the other thing is, with snowmobiles, you really don't know. Like, the way I look at them, I never go into it assuming that it hasn't been touched, because generally everything on these damn things have been touched. I mean, clearly somebody couldn't get the skid in all the way and wallowed out that hole to get that to work, so stuff like that. So everything's been touched on these damn things at least once. So this could be somebody could have swapped in a 340. I cannot decipher that VIN for the life of me, but if the first two digits are 90, you'd think it's a 1990, so I don't know. The only way I can tell to even find which motor this is, because the data plate that's supposed to be down there is, number one, covered up by the starter, and number two, not there, because evidently Subaru decided to not put data plates on half of these damn things. Like I said in the last video, I only have one 488 that even has a data plate on it, so good things. But anyway, not good things, but So I think what I'm going to do is just take 20 minutes and just tear off a head and measure the diameter of the cylinder and see if it's compare the piston sizes. So anyway, I think that's gonna be the first thing. Next thing is tear apart that clutch and see if I don't think I have any lighter weights to go into it, but I think I should have hopefully a heavier spring to put into that, just to get it to rev a little bit higher, because that's the issue, is that this thing, when it's carbon through powder, it only wants to go to about 65. When it's on standard ground, it goes up to about 7. So ideally you'd like it to be at 7 or a little higher. I'm not too concerned about over revving these Subaru / Fuji, whatever the hell you want to call them, motors, because they seem to be pretty damn bulletproof. So yeah, the other thing is I'm going to try and install a petcock, because these things seem to just drain a little bit of gas out as they sit. So all right, so I got the heads off, and I also mainly did this to see what kind of condition they're in. Now the other thing is the side of these cylinder walls are kind of pitted. I don't know what, like, that seems like it's a bit rusty. It doesn't look like wear, that looks like rust. So that's something that's something that you tend to notice anyway. So otherwise, they look pretty decent. They look like they're running even. So now next thing is I'm going to get the caliper and get the book out and see which motors these are, see how big the pistons are. I'm guessing that this is in fact a 440 based on the fact that these don't look too much smaller than the 488s, and the fact that they say EC44 there. So I'm guessing that means it's a 440 jug. So I don't know. The other thing is, it's weird that these head gaskets feel like they've been siliconed on there, which I don't know why you'd do that, considering it's the inner fire ring that does the majority of the sealing anyway, but I don't know. I'm probably not going to put any back on. I trust that this thing would that these head gaskets would end up sealing perfectly anyway, so yeah. Yeah, time to, I guess, spend a bunch of time in the service manual and see what the sizes are. All right, so this is in fact a 440, since it's got the 67 millimeter bore, because the 340s had a 62 millimeter-ish bore. So this measured up to about 67. So that means that this is in fact a 440. So now I know that, which means that in the future I may swap those to a 34 millimeter carburetor just to see if it gains me any power, because like I said, this thing's kind of a piece of shit. But first, I'm going to definitely try the clutch tuning. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna start putting this top end of this motor back together at least. I don't think I'm gonna do anything about those head gaskets, like I said. I think they'll be fine. Yeah, no, it is weird because this does look different than the 488s. Like everything's like a little bit more rounded off. Like the, especially the cylinder heads here, those look a little bit rounder than what I remember. And it's weird that they have the studs that go all the way through to the air thing, but I don't know. That doesn't really matter. That doesn't really mean anything. Obviously, that's just kind of how it is. So yeah, I'm gonna put all this back together and get working on that clutch. Now, another thing that I did notice that's definitely a reason why this is a bit more, but less, is a bit less powerful, is that secondary clutch is physically smaller, which means that there's less, circumference or less diameter, however you want to say it. That means that it's geared taller, which means that it's meant to have, not really meant to, but it would have a higher top speed with everything else being the same. So that's another reason this thing's kind of doggy. I don't necessarily see any reason to try and replace that with a bigger one, even though I do think I have one. I'm not going to do that because then you got to worry about a different size belt, and I don't think I'd necessarily get much out of that anyway. So I am gonna definitely try and tune that clutch better, though. I'm hoping that I have a heavier spring for that, and I don't think I'd end up having lighter weights, but we'll see. So anyway, yeah, time to put that motor back together. All right, so like I said, I don't really have any weights to go with this, but what I do have is I have 3 spring options. So this was the original, and this is the lightest, and then this is the medium, and this is the heaviest. Now this is where I got to make the decision. Do I go with the second heaviest or the heaviest? Now this is spring from an Indy trail clutch, which I have previously discussed, are kind of meh. And this is the one out of a Indy 500, which was the second heaviest spring I have behind that Indy, which is behind the one that was in that Indy 400. So I'm thinking that I might as well go big or go home and try this spring, because these are not the lightest weights I believe that I have either. Ooh, that looks kind of loose right there. But anyway, yeah, so I think I'm gonna try this white spring and see how she works. Right, so now that clutch is back together and in there with that white spring, so we'll see how well that works. But first I am gonna put that fuel petcock I took off back in there, because this thing, I filled it up with gas and it seemed like it drained quite a bit of it out. So yeah, I'm gonna revise this fuel system a little bit, and then, yeah, then we'll take it for a test spin, a real short one, and then, yeah. All right, so I got the petcock installed. I just don't have enough fuel line right now to actually plumb it in, so I'm gonna worry about that later. Anyway, next thing is get my gear on and take it for a test ride and see what the engagement speeds are. All right, so that primary spring didn't really do much. It really just increased its engagement speed, didn't really increase its max RPM. So next thing was I thought about doing the secondary tuning. It is, like I said before, this is noticeably a smaller secondary too. Then I realized that I don't have the right snap ring pliers for it, and I'd probably end up doing more harm than good in the end anyway. So I think my next course of action is actually going to be to change course completely and do a 34 millimeter carb swap onto it, because those are only 30s and I'd like some more power, and then we'll probably end up getting a little scale and shaving these primary weights down. So that's what I'm gonna try. But anyway, yeah, first I'm gonna do that. Now, what I have looked up in my service manual is that the carburetors that are gonna end up going on here are XLT carburetors. So look it up, and they actually have the same pilot jet being a 180 and the same, the same main jet being a 180 and the same pilot jet being a 35, I believe. So I'm gonna go find those carburetors, get a pair that work, and I don't know if I'm gonna see if I can use this same throttle thing and just use different caps on it, or caps and slides obviously, and then, or if I'm just gonna end up using the 3-cylinder thing with one cable taken out. So I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna get all the stuff I should need for that. All right, so right here I got pretty much everything I should need to accomplish this swap. I got two different carb boots for these 34s. I've got these, both are out of an XLT, which have to be set up pretty similar to the 440s with 34s. These got 180 main jets and 35 pilots, which should be about right. Sorry for that fan in the background. So yeah, time to go and take these over to the sled and put them on. All right, so we're back on the sled here now. Number one issue I'm facing is that this factory style throttle right here doesn't have enough throw to fully open a 34, but it does have enough throw to fully open a 30. So I thought, well, shit, that might be the end of it, because while I do have another one of these, the grips are never removable on these damn Polarises. But then I realized that the other one I have of these is already removed. But somebody, the previous owner, was nice enough to put on these aftermarket grips already. So I was able to just spray some penetrating oil on there, slip this one off, and now we can get this throttle off. I can go put my other one on, and the other nice thing about that is that other one has a heated thumb already, which means I can take this heated thumb throttle off and put it on the Indy Trail, which doesn't have one. So this is actually working out a lot better than I expected. So anyway, yeah, now I just got to go grab that. All right, well, I got this new grip on, or not this new throttle on with this this grip. Now I did have to actually file this grip down a little bit so the throttle wouldn't catch on it, but other than that, yeah, that's all good. I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. I got the carb boots on. What's actually interesting I found out is that all the carb boots I had for a 2-cylinder 34 mil were from the mid-80s, which actually didn't even use an O-ring in the carb boot. They just used silicone or a gasket or something. So anyway, which means I just put silicone back on there. But all right, well, I got the carburetors on here, and I even found a battery that was frozen. Then I refilled it with a little bit of water, let it unthaw, and now it starts it. So I mean, I hope that's lasts anyway, so I can have electric start on this. But yeah, got everything buttoned up here, got all the heaters wired up, and I got this one, got a heater wired up on here finally too, so hopefully that'll work. But anyway, yeah, now I guess it's time to take this for a test ride and see how little power it gained from upgrading those carburetors. But I mean, the purpose of upgrading these carburetors was like, I mean, it wasn't to get more power really, it's basically just to make this an easier switch when I inevitably blow the 440 up and I want to replace it with one of my 488s, because I have like 2 of those just sitting around. And the other reason was I have a go-kart or 2 that could use a set of 30s, but 34s is, I mean, either way, 30s or 34s are a bit big, but they're already one of them. It's easier to set up a 30 than a 34, I'd say, for those. So that that's the next reason. And then that this thumb heater situation worked out pretty good. So I'm just all around hoping that this was a good idea. So yeah, time to get both of these things out here and test ride them.